Okay, back to our discussion of Sonnet 116. Sorry for the interruption. So, um, again, what we see here is Shakespeare is using art to discuss metaphysical messages, their effects on different important archetypal aspects of the life experience, um, which it is religion's function to offer the path to. That is, religion offers um, means, paths to justifying in self a concept about the nature of the universe, which, because of our species' particular awareness of uniqueness, irrefutable particularity, and ever taking account of infinity, the manifestations of infinity, uncontrollable, undefinable, unknowable, dual, in enigmatic factors and forces, is beneficial for the species which recognizes those and therefore which was designed knowing those, and designed to receive from engagement of both of those and engagement with those aspects of everything in the world around us, um, of both of those types, the specific in each thing and the limitless in each thing. We're designed to receive from both of these aspects using both of these types of knowledge or understanding. That is, we're supposed to have reconciled infinity and uniqueness, and therefore to come into an interaction with the world around us, which reflects that by seeing the specific, but seeing it in a way which knows that has a limitless and equally limitless potential for meaning, value, and truth. That the truth in us, the way of reconciling infinity and uniqueness, that what everything else around us has, is an irrefutably particular way of being related. We're all part of this infinity in an infinite plexus which is always changing. Therefore, the irrefutable particularity, the uniqueness of each thing, is something that's ever changing. And so we're supposed to use both of these types of knowledge to engage with both of these aspects of each thing. That everything is irrefutably particular, but limitless in its way of being that. So we see that selfless way of interacting with the world, reflects that which reflects what religion offers having been achieved, reconciled in consciousness, this idea of infinity, or the beyond self. Um, the way that we interact with the world, the approachable, mundane, our daily lives, what's around us, having reconciled that infinity in and with a uniqueness marked consciousness, is the way that we interact with the things around us is selfless. It doesn't define them. It doesn't assume about them because it knows whatever their specificity is ever changing. It's not to be assumed about. It's limitless, and it interacts therefore with things in a way which has a sort of like Cezanne's pure vision, um, with a rigorous scrutiny, but not one driven by an attempt for like to gain encyclopedic knowledge or to control or define things, but actually one driven by praise, by an awareness of being at one with all of these other things, which themselves are limitless in potential. They're part of a miraculous whole. Um, so it interacts with things in that way, in a way which is selfless, unassuming, which is listening, giving, loving, unconditionally, agape. um, it's the love being a is a type of focus, and agape, unconditional love, is the one which looks at and gives to all other things selflessly, knowing deathlessness, knowing oneness with them, knowing an equally limitless potential for meaning, truth, value, consequence of everything, of every type, state, and nature. And so we come into an interaction with that which sees whatever it is around us as fundamental as possible. In qigong, this is the stretching of the bow. This is going as far, we reach as far as selflessly as possible. We give absolutely all of self in so that we might see what something irrefutably particularly is and what the self irrefutably particularly is in and by relationship to it. That is, we stretch so far, we create such opposition that we begin to see what it is in as everything that it's not. The more relationships that we understand to it, the more we can see what it most irrefutably particularly is, giving everything of self to see as many aspects of its truth as possible. That's when um, therefore interacting with it in a way which sees it as fundamental relationships. What exactly is it? Well, what exactly is it not? What is every aspect of its truth, as many as possible, all by relationship? It's slightly bigger than this, smaller than that, louder than this, quieter than that, faster, slower, um, deeper, wider, stranger, curvier, darker, blah, blah, blah. Every relationship. That's how we begin to see the world around us. That's how we see, that's how we perceive, that's how consciousness operates. Consciousness is pattern making hardware. It's our ability to detect patterns in the world around us and knowing the patterns of the self to begin to identify with those patterns, gain meaning, which leads to the identification of self. And so what happens is we begin to interact with things in the way which consciousness itself does, which a consciousness unencumbered by a tendency to isolate and define and limit does. It allows us to use our consciousness to its full capacity, and we begin to see the world as fundamental relationships between things, not as that's a tree, that's a frog, that's the cloud, and that's it. That's not how it works. That's not using our consciousness to reveal more consciousness. After we reveal our own uniqueness at approximately the age of 15, we feel a sense of contradiction to these manifestations of infinity we always recognize, and so we begin to attempt to control and isolate and limit things in this way, to feel like we have control in a place where we recognize the uncontrollableness and indefinableness of all things. And this is an ego fear-based reaction, but it is justifying infinity, which is what religion offers us a path to, and consciousness, which allows us to begin to again use consciousness as we did in childhood, to interact selflessly with everything in the world around us, to give, to love unconditionally, to focus selflessly, to focus with complete giving, and therefore to see things, to use consciousness to detect more patterns, more truths between the fundamental relationships of things, which in fact are ever changing, irrefutably particular in their way of being related to an ever-changing plexus around them. We begin to give all of self, to stretch in order to see exactly everything that it is not, and therefore everything it is. And the more of this we see, the more patterns, consciousness, the more truth, meaningful identification we have with the other. And it is this way of interacting with the approachable mundane, the way reflecting infinity, which is in fact the exact same way that art manages to express and to include infinity into discussion. Um, art is um, art is the fundamental relationships, irrefutably particular relationships between abstract energetic variables, whether those be the sounds in music and the parsing of time there, the movements of the body in space, um, shapes, lines, colors, volumes, all of these different things that themselves are abstract. These are means of parsing or creating relationships in abstract environments, contexts. Um, and so art interacts with its world just as we interact with our world when we've reconciled infinity. That is, it maps a world which includes infinity. It also, as it is energy and nothing more, it is empirical evidence of and an embodiment of the type of behavior, the treatment of even that which is invisible or energetic, as having an equally limitless context. It itself embodies and gives empirical evidence of energy equivalence, which is one of the implications of infinity. It itself um, is definite, preserved, specific, irrefutably particular, unique truths that are preserved. This line is exactly this long, this one's this long, that one's that color, that one's that color, and all of these relationships between them. That one's higher, that one's lower, that one's redder, that one's greener, blah, blah, blah. All of these things, all these relationships that are definite. You can't choose about them, they're specific. And yet, just as all of the specific, unique, irrefutably particular things in the approachable, mundane world around us have a limitlessness in them too. They have the way that we look at them and interact with them, and therefore we reveal our irrefutably particular way of being related to them, which is ever changing. So every time we look at the fundamental relationships of art, each different set of eyes in posterity, every single different one, because they're energetic, just like the physical things are, but more explicitly, clearly, purely abstract here. Every time we look at them, we can find an irrefutably particular way of being related to these specific, these irrefutably particular things. And so, again, it's a world in which the specific, the definite, the irrefutably particular, which we know and we recognize, nevertheless has a limitless potential for meaning and consequence and value and truth and purpose. Um, and so we see that Shakespeare is using art in order to pass metaphysical messages. He's essentially a saint, an apostle, a prophet, a messenger of the messages Abrahamic, messages from Hermes, from the Greek god system, showing us, in the case of Sonnet 71, about teaching us about deathlessness and immortality in the word. And here in Sonnet 116, he shows us how is the archetypal experience and this human capacity for love, this type of focus, and giving, and this sensation, how is this affected? How does this play into this metaphysical message? And how is it therefore another means for us to deduce from and understand the metaphysical concept through its influence on this very shared, universal, ubiquitously experienced aspect of life? So, Sonnet 116, let's recite it. Love is not, no, sorry, got excited for the famous line. So it begins, let me not to the marriage of true minds admit impediments. Love is not love, which alters when alteration finds, nor bends to the remover to remove. Oh no, it is an ever fixed mark, which looks upon tempests and is never shaken. It is the star to every wandering bark, whose worth's unknown, although his heights be taken. Love's not time's fool, although rosy lips and cheeks between his bending sickles compass come. Love's not love, which alters with his brief hours and weeks. Love alters not with his brief hours and weeks, but bears it out even to the edge of doom. If this be error and upon me proved, I never writ, nor no man ever loved. So that's my choppy recitation of 116. Um, Again, I'll offer you my unique interaction with this abstract world, this universe mapped through the subject of love, that pattern, that reality and experience that we all share, but in an abstract world which can therefore show through a plexus of relationships irrefutably particular truths, meaningful patterns, meaning holding patterns, isomorphic property and quality about this subject that we all know, which can allow Shakespeare to give his irrefutably particular and therefore limitlessly or infinitely specific understanding, meaningful identification with this subject, this idea of love that he experienced and which we all experience, as it's affected by this metaphysical concept being passed, and therefore to lead us to seeing and understanding the values, the meanings, which are his message, which are this shared message, but through a specific guise and through this particular subject and the life experience. Instead of deathlessness or immortality, here it's love. How is love and everything we know about it, everything we all experience in that, affected by, a part of, an implication of, related to what's being taught, metaphysical message? And so it's his utilizing art as a function to discuss religious information, metaphysical information about the nature of ourselves and all the things in the universe. So let's start from the beginning. And again, I'm going to give you my interpretation of some of the relationships. There are countless relationships between every single part of this. Everything, just like the world around us, everything that this is not shows what it is. This is only defined by relationship to everything within it, to each word, to each arrangement, relationship, and distance, and each word. Each word was chosen from all of the other words. What is it most specifically, each word? Why is it exactly there? As could have been put anywhere. How are all of them arranged in their sequences and their abstract relationships of every type? That's what that is what is the irrefutable particular truth of this, which we must interact with in a way which reflects reconciliation and infinity selflessly. See what's absolutely there. Praise this energetic reality of this other, knowing its equally limitless potential, and then we may see that which is true about it, that which is most specific, that which considers and looks at and takes into consideration and reveals the most fundamental aspects, everything that it is being everything that it is not. And it's then that we have something to interact with, something beyond ourselves to interact with. And that's when we reveal the otherwise impossible, the irrefutably particular truth of how we are related right now to this. Selfless, revealing yet how we are only now, because we are always changing, and therefore this is always changing. I'm irrefutably particular, but this is irrefutably particular. And yet that truth, that uniqueness, is something that's ever changing. So I'm going to show you a few ways that I'm interacting with this right now, interacting with what this definitely is and not anything else. And what that'll reveal is my irrefutably particular way of understanding what's there. I will not go through all of them because we'll be here until the ending doom, but I'll just point out a few, and hopefully that guides you to seeing how we might interact with and in the abstract world, and how therefore that can help us to comprehend and interact with metaphysical messages and artistic creation, a vast resource from across all of time, carrying tons of very useful information, how we may interact with and therefore comprehend more of it for our benefit, or utilize art as an expression for our unique understanding of the world, which includes infinity, and which interacts with it in a way which reflects reconciliation of infinity in our consciousness. So he starts by saying, "Let me not to the marriage of true minds admit impediments." Woo! So, I mean, I feel from a creator standpoint immediately that he is sitting there thinking, "Oh no, somebody probably misread his work and showed him their misinterpretation." But let me not to the he. It's as if he thought to himself, "Oh no, they think I'm talking about this other kind of love. They think I'm talking about like sexual love or head over heels. I don't know why, but I fell in love with this specific beloved love." And he says, "Whoa, stop. This is like a declaration." The beginning of the first sentence of this sonnet is a proclamation, a declaration. Don't let he almost is talking to himself by saying he will not allow this to be confused. This sonnet is his refusal to let there remain confusion about what he means by love in all of his work and all of his metaphysical passings. The Book of William, perhaps. So he's showing us, well, first of all, also that he mentions marriage, a sacrament in the previous metaphysical passing that he's discussing. He's discussing religion, specifically the Abraham, like the way and the ideas of the Abrahamic traditions, particularly the Word and the unique light, which is the light of mankind. Um, but he's showing us that it's marriage, which is the sacrament in which two individuals embody selfless identification with another, unconditional. That they choose to come into a union which embodies the reconnection, the implications of infinity, the reconciliation of two into one. Um, that it is this behavior, this selfless identification with another, this becoming one after seemingly being two, which is the path to, which is the treating of things as being sacred and the path to the benefits, the nourishment, um, which result from reconciling infinity and consciousness, which is why it's a sacred um, practice. So he immediately draws attention to that this is a marriage. This is a himself, his unique energy of self must be married to the true mind. So he also identifies that there's different types of minds. There's thinking, but then there's using the mind, interacting in a way which perhaps doesn't only think in one way. It's not about consciousness. True minds, he's showing us something else. True minds, that which he doesn't want to admit impediments to. He won't allow the marriage of his mind, what he's teaching, a mind which sees not only this one thing, this consciousness, which is like sort of the average or the incomplete one that's trying to be fixed, but this one which has a justification for marriage, for selflessness, for selfless love, for unconditional love, for agape. This one that uses both of our capacities, not only our recognition of uniqueness, but our recognition of infinity. That he shows us that there's something to be questioned about mind, because we all have minds, but which one is particularly human? Which one is the one that he's talking about? He doesn't want to allow, he writes this sonnet to eliminate the possibility that love can be misinterpreted, that can that his oh, hold on. He wants to eliminate the possibility that this um, connection between his work, all of his works, which mention love all over the place, because it's such a substantial and substantially redefined aspect of the human experience by the metaphysical message, which all of his work, which pervades all of his work. Um, he doesn't want there to be a possibility that this so important and so pervading um, subject is misinterpreted. Um, so we see immediately that there's two different types of thought which are in discussion: the true mind and then something else, just like the vile world and the wise world. Um, just like, um, well, just like, let's just say that that there's this one that, again, making a connection to 71, mourns death. This one that doesn't understand the wise world, um, that doesn't have the metaphysical messages, and then this one that does. There's one that just operates in a way that's not human specific, maybe that just understands uniqueness, and then this one that's a true mind, which understands infinity and uniqueness, has reconciled them as an irrefutably particular way of being related that's ever changing, the limitless and the specific, and then um, how it then treats the world in a way which understands that all things are sacred, including the air, that is willing then to do things like marriage, to come into a selfless identification with another, sacrificing many other things in order to establish and facilitate as much as possible a selfless bond across time with another, an unconditional love to another that embodies this oneness, that commits to this oneness. Um, and to perpetuating the reflection of this infinity concept received. So he proclaims, "Let me not to the marriage of true minds admit impediments." He's like, to that mind that recognizes both of those things and is seeking a way to reconcile them, and to me who has reconciled them and who is acting as a messenger to pass ways to understanding and justifying, to guiding towards illuminating and reflecting and embodying that message that you're seeking, that all humans are seeking, that the one who has reconciled would have therefore gained a true mind, and let him not admit impediments, let him not get in the way of that by not writing Sonnet 116. Here he shows us then how he's going to do it and what he's not going to allow to stop. He's going to talk about love. Love is not love which alters when alteration finds. So he says that there is this one type of love, but there's this other one, and it's the one that he's talking about. And it's a thing that doesn't change when it finds other options or better options. That is, it's a type of love which is unconditional. It's not about the appearance or the state or the nature or the type of the thing, whether you like one more than the other, whether you have the tendency to go towards one or the other, whether one is more like you or less like you, whether one is visible or invisible, whether one is energetic or material, whether one is antagonistic or harmonious. It doesn't matter. It doesn't, this love, whatever we're talking about, this love, this way of focusing, this human experience, this is one which doesn't alter when it finds some other alteration. It's unconditional. Whatever was being taught makes us love everything. What would make us interact with everything of every type, state, nature, appearance, uh, with completely unconditional giving? That's what we're seeking. That's what he's talking about. Love is not love which alters when alteration finds, nor bends to the remover to remove. So that means there's very possibly an antagonistic, a disconnective entity. Even if you think of a relationship with two people and one begins to see the other as antagonistic, begins to say that something is better than the other one, leaves this unconditional giving. Somebody does, having not reconciled infinity, begins to say, like, you're wrong, I'm right. There's one correct answer. True love, unconditional love, does not condone this disconnective, dissonant, ignorant, oblivious enmity from 55. This way of behaving which does not reflect understanding the equally limitless potential even in the antagonist, which the caduceus, the Kirikion, unifies. In fact, this is what forgiveness is for. This is another huge concept that's related to both of these. It does not bend to the remover to remove. That is, the one who has reconciled infinity in consciousness does not see the antagonist, does not see the one that attacks it or that behaves wrongly or creates a sense of isolation, does not do what this thing wants. What it does is it forgives. It finds a new way to identify, to be selflessly, to find, to reveal to consciousness an irrefutably particular way of being again related to even this thing that seems so antagonistic and dissonant. And that's exactly by that's what forgiveness is. It's the one who has reconciled infinity in consciousness, not bending, not condoning the behavior of the remover of love, the one that's dissonant or acts in ego, fear, and isolation. It yet again acts selflessly and gives to even that one which is so distinct and foreign or strange or dissonant or antagonistic, and finds yet another way of being connected, selflessly connected to the other, and therefore relieves the self of this sense of isolation by having found another path to connection with them, but never bends. It doesn't condone that behavior. So love is not love which alters with alteration finds. No, it's unconditional love. Nor bends to the remover to remove. They don't condone this behavior. This love sticks around. It's used again to find identification, to forgive, and therefore to move on to continue to spread and reveal unique light. Oh no, it is an ever fixed mark. We see that it's a way of looking, of identifying, of connecting, which is in perpetuation. It's always locked into everything with this selfless giving, which is justified by this concept that could come with you throughout time, that is included in your ever-changing nature. So it's a truth that's beyond. It's a truth that's beyond, let's say, this first level of truth, which is specificity. It includes indefinableness. It's a truth that includes this infinite aspect um, of of the reality that we recognize. Um, it is an ever fixed mark that looks upon tempest and is never shaken. This is very hermetic. This is Hermes related, but the idea is that one of the implications, we as we utilized sacred right in order to begin to give ourselves a sense of reconciliation with these uncontrollable, indefinable, beyond self, unknowable factors and forces, we gained enough energy to consider these concepts further and started to realize, well, if we're in an infinite context, which all of these manifestations we always take account of suggest, then um, then everything of every type, state, and nature, energetic, physical, invisible, visible, just a thought suggested, a feeling, an inanimate object, an animal that's like us but different, a person that's like us but different, whatever it may be, is of equally limitless potential. And all of a sudden, we come into interaction with even that which is the most different than us, even that which is terrible to us, the snake, the serpent, in a way that selflessly gives, that knows that its truth is something that's ever changing, that's limitless. Um, and so what we reveal, well, this is why in the Kirikion, it is the unification of the serpent on the staff, which embodies, which is the cross, the embodiment of an indefinableness at the center point of the cross. One of the paths, just like Hermes' transition, that's a transition at the center of the cross where one thing is not coming from the top, bottom, right, or left, but all of them, both of them, and none of them. That's a path to justifying infinity in the self. Just like Hermes' transition, the experience that we all go through of wakeness to sleep, of life to death, of the exchange of hands, and therefore the thief exchanging even between the one who's aware of the exchange and one who's not. There's always a moment of indefinableness. That's what the prayer hands is too. It's where two things meet, and we can't quite point where the end of one is and the beginning of the other is. That's a widely experienceable path across all of humanity and all cultures and times, places, and epochs to justifying infinity in self. And so we see in this statement that this love is unconditional. It looks upon tempests, even things that it really doesn't like. It is never shaken. It continues to love despite antagonism. Having used, for instance, like a transition, like it's as Hermes' message to pass, a path to justifying through this embodying deity or God, this means to justifying infinity and therefore coming into an interaction which is most beneficial, which reflects it. Just like the cross, which is MC Escher's point of opportunity. That point, I mean, in Belvedere, you could really see the point quite clearly where right in the middle, it can be anything. It's indefinable. It could become part of the top or part of the bottom. It's both. And this can allow for magic or limitlessness, infinity, an endless potential for meaning, value, truth to exist in the world around us. This is how the specific and the infinite come together. This is how we find limitlessness in limitless nourishment from the specificity we recognize. It is the star to every wandering bark, whose worth's unknown, although its heights be taken. So stars, I'll be very brief. I'll try to be very brief about this, but stars are one of the things, one of our realities, one of the things we sense and perceive, a definite thing, but at such distance, it's such indefinableness that they have been a source of inspiration across all of time. Um, and we can think of this inspiration as guidance. So it's that one who is seeking, that one which is wandering. You could the analogy is between a human who is seeking, a wandering, and a ship that needs guidance. Um, and it is something like this, something that's so far away, something that's so indefinable explicitly that all of a sudden we are forced to realize that our ego can't control this. We get to turn off the ego. We get to be selfless without having reconciled infinity within ourselves. It's something that forces us to see that it's beyond our definition, beyond our control. That's the one of the great potentials and powers of the star, of something that we can sense and see and we always perceive, and yet we know that we cannot define. And so this gives us the opportunity, which is, the opportunity without ourselves having to generate it, so therefore not an autonomous one, but it gives us the opportunity to look at and to interact with some part of our world, albeit a very distant one, in a way which is most beneficial, in the same way which reflects infinity, but without our having achieved that yet. And so we're able to gain so much nourishment, and hence there's so much art made about stars. We're able to, by interacting with this thing really gives us the opportunity, this phenomenon gives us the opportunity really widely, ubiquitously, to be selfless and therefore to gain from interaction with it. Now, we're supposed to understand that if we interacted with anything in a way which reflects infinity, this same thing, this behavior that we're really encouraged and allowed to with the stars, because we know we can't define them, and therefore our ego is turned off, would be equally beneficial. We'd be equally inspired and nourished by interaction with anything. But it's that which is so distant, we have no reason to believe that our ego could possibly have anything to do with it, could possibly define it or limit it or control it, that this interaction is selfless. And therefore it's guiding. It reveals to us truths, that which is otherwise impossible, but which is a truth of self. We're shown a new idea. We're shown increased knowledge. We're shown growth of self. We're shown increased completeness. We're removed from self-doubt. We're given a sense of reconciliation because we've come into selfless interaction with that which is beyond us, and therefore revealed to consciousness a additional truth of self and a means of being reconciled in this infinity, this beyond self including context which we sometimes find ourselves isolated from. And so in this way, this love is the star. Love is the path, or the means. Love is the means to the means being like the thing we're supposed to use. The love he's talking about, the selfless love, unconditional love, agape, is what we're supposed to use in interaction with anything in the world around us, and that's what would reveal what that same selfless interaction, which is so facilitated by the stars, would do. And in both of these, well, the stars has done, and this is what would make us this is what would, like, but in the same way that the boat uses the stars for like specific guidance, is the like analogy. um it is love unconditional, the one being taught, which is a reflection, like let's say a byproduct of having reconciled the message being taught of infinity. Therefore, this allows us to deduce it, be guided towards seeing it. um it's that love, it's when we find that love or justification for that unconditional love, autonomous and perpetuating, that we are guided the same way that humans, facilitated by the distance, the clear indefinableness of the stars, are facilitated and guided by having a justification for turning off their ego. Okay. Love's not times fool, though rosy lips and cheeks within his bending sickle's compass come. Yeah, love alters not with his brief hours and weeks. I'm gonna I'm gonna leave that for now. I'm gonna leave the time related thing. It shows that, similar to how it doesn't alter with the arrival of new things, it also doesn't disintegrate. Time and all of time's conditions don't disintegrate it. But I want to actually touch on the thing right before that. So, is the star to every wandering bark, whose, and this is a huge implication of infinity, whose worth's unknown, although his heights be taken. So, this shows that the love that's being taught, its value is unknown. That is always, because that's what's being said here, it's worth's unknown, which means it's always unknown. Or else he would say it's sometimes unknown. It's worth's unknown, although its heights be taken. So that means it is used and it does reveal something. It its experience is achieved, and yet its product is indefinable. How does this make sense? We're being guided to see a very important point, teaching, metaphysical teaching. That is, when we interact with the world in a way which reflects infinity, when we love everything unconditionally across time and across all types of things. Doesn't matter if the thing alters the object, the beloved object. It doesn't matter who we are across time or the change in any of those objects. The worth, the value, the meaning, the purpose, the function of the thing will always remain unknown. So we'll never know what it is, although it is achieved. So that means that whatever we're looking for is always unknown. But we do arrive to it. And that's what this teaches, is that when we interact with the world in a way which reflects infinity, what's being taught, we what we reveal is unique light. That's our irrefutably particular way of being related to this other thing which we've loved unconditionally. What we do by being selfless is we reveal our way of being irrefutably particularly related to the other thing, the thing that we gave such selflessness to, whether it was because it was such a distant star that we removed our ego, or because we allowed infinity to justify that selfless interaction. And we reveal this meaningful way of being related. We find fundamental patterns in it which reflect what we hold inside self and what we understand as being the world, but we see that it's a little bit bigger, a little bit different, a little bit stranger, a little bit wider, a little bit whatever it is, some meaning, some meaningful relationship to this other thing. It's really just a psychoenergetic result. It's the synergistic result of ourselves and the other thing at that particular moment. And whatever that is ourself and the other as we are connected. This is the transformation myth. We're transformed into one aspect of the other and the other into us. This is, we're both irrefutably particularly related to everything around us, but this is the thread connecting us in that moment. That's the Holy Spirit, the air as it's the air as it is, endowed with meaning when we treat ourselves and everything in the air and the other as being sacred, as being in infinity. And so what we've revealed is that which is otherwise impossible. It depended on this current moment of ourselves and the other. It's irrefutably particular way of being related that's ever changing. So what we reveal is a newness, and this redefines the self and the other. It connects us sustainably. It redefines us and therefore rebirths us a new meaning. It completes us by showing us one aspect of our truth, our irrefutable particular truth, our individuality, our uniqueness, and that removes self-doubt. It shows us that we are connected in this plexus beyond the self, and therefore reconciles us. It does all these things that are so nourishing, and this is its worth. But once that happens, that's no longer the current truth of self. It's not the light revealed which is valuable. It's not the aspect of the other. It's not the particular moment of conditions which are of any value. Its worth is not in the other. It's not in the like one specific thing that you think is your beloved princess. It's not in the appearance. It's not in the idea that you found. It's not in the moment that happened or the conditions that were there. The worth is that a newness is revealed, irrefutably particular truth of self and other as they are united in that moment, ever changing. That's what's valuable. That's what redefines us. That's what we like. That's what connects us. That's what we like. That's what shows us that we're reconciled. What reconciles infinity and uniqueness. That's what we seek. These are all the things that we seek. It's not in any of those things. That's why it's worth's unknown, although its heights be taken. Many have achieved this, and they do, and they're inspired, and they preserve and pass their message. They guide others, like Shakespeare is, to utilizing these metaphysical messages for interaction with the world, and then interaction in the abstract, the passing of this knowledge, the comprehending of this knowledge from others. Those heights are taken. Unconditional love is achieved. Reconciliation of infinity is achieved. But the light which is revealed will always be changing. The shape of that which we value must always be changing, because that which we seek is only the otherwise impossible. It's only that which can only be irrefutably particularly true in the next moment. And so its worth's unknown. Um, just like in 55, he mentions that your praise shall always find room. Um, so, yeah, this is we already have multiple levels of now the use and the implications metaphysical for this love subject inside of a life experience when it's affected by the metaphysical concept, the premise being taught. Um, I'm gonna stop there. The last sentence is incredibly profound and a lot to talk about. If this be error and upon me proved, I never writ, nor no man ever loved. This does bring up the question of proof, which has to do with the unquestionability of faith. I'll just mention really quickly that proof of God, proof of the definability in faith, proof of a belief are useless in this pursuit, in this seeking, in the use of metaphysical knowledge. There is no point in proof. There's never a point in saying, okay, you think that in between your two hands there's indefinableness. I'm going to prove to you that this one atom ends here and the other one ends here. This proof that uh, somehow you can solve a paradox, or that you can find the end of of the universe, or something like that. That you can extend what are invariably and even beneficially limited senses to analyze and limit and define things have nothing to do with religion. That's just an extension of your ego fear, attempting to collect and control the world around you, which no matter how much you collect, you'll always realize is um, possesses infinity, possesses things which you can't define: indefinableness, uncontrollableness, unknowableness, that which is beyond self. It's quite clear that the psyche is not, we do not know every aspect of it, and nor the universe that it is a reflection of and part of, the denizen in. So proof is useless. The questioning of faith is useless. What we need to do is use the religion, use the spirituality, use the philosophy, use the metaphysical light past in order, however we can, with no proof necessary, whatever makes sense to us, use whatever one of these past, whether it's a paradox, a proverb, a specific phenomena, which is an embodiment which clearly embodies infinity beyond your ability to deny, like Zeno's paradox, like the ocean being droplets and the ocean, and endless droplets and the ocean. It's both. Or the transition of Hermes. All of these places where there's the beginning of one and the end of the other, and they can't quite ever be defined. You'll never know exactly where you were asleep and awake. It's indefinable. You can never know where does that death exactly start after physical aliveness. These are things which are opportunities. It has nothing to do with proving that they're one or the other. In fact, once you prove it, it no longer is an opportunity. It's been essentially removed from uselessness in the religious function. Their function, the function of all of these things, the function of the thing being passed, the the offering, is not that it's provable or that you can prove it. There's no use in it being proved. The use is if you can use it to justify acting in a way which reflects the infinity it's a manifestation of. If you can see enough of it to believe sufficiently, to have enough evidence in self, empirical evidence of, for instance, the equivalence of energy, to begin to interact in a way which reflects it, which the religion also guides you to do. It says, if this works out, you're going to be acting like this. You're going to be giving a lot. You're going to be super sacrificing and selfless. You're going to be listening. You're going to be loving everything. If you have enough proof to begin to act in that way that's encouraged, the way that's said to reflect the infinity, then you reveal the unique light. You come into an interaction reflecting infinity, and you reveal the unique light, which confirms the value of this behavior in the self, and also reconciles the self. Begins to allow you to have empirical evidence that therefore looks into this same text, the same message passing, and starts to understand and more readily identify with all of these things. You see the real psychological effect. And then, as also the spirituality or religion or philosophy or metaphysical text offers to you, you begin to be guided to and more readily seeing more and more of the implications of this thing. You know its value because you've received that which connects you, which completes you, which gives you new meaning, which gives you new purpose, which gives you increased knowledge, then cascading when you watch having been redefined and sustainably connected, how all other things are redefined in light of that, you gain the real psychological effect of this infinity being reconciled in self. It doesn't matter how it was reconciled, it doesn't matter how provable it was. It got you to the state of mind that brought about the results that result in the real psychological effect of the religion. That's the reality of the metaphysics. The reality is that if we can somehow, doesn't matter how it's proven, doesn't matter if it's proven, can somehow allow us to justify, just like the star's distinctness did, to interact with the world in a way which reflects our being in an infinite context, the implications of that, to treat other things according to the implications of that in a way which reflects that, then all of a sudden we begin to gain the benefit. We see that the sacrifice and sacred right that we made gives us a sense of being connected, and that removed us from self-doubt, and that allowed us to give more energy. That allows us to then see that others are telling us that, well, in fact, anything of any kind you can interact with, and all of a sudden we begin to interact selflessly with a much wider range of resources, and we begin to gain meaning and nourishment, gain information, gain truth of self, gain a sense of reconciliation, gain an increase in communication, companionship, and support and informedness, and all these other things. And this is the real psychological effect, which is the entire purpose of religion. This is why we're doing it. It doesn't matter what's proven along the way. The proof is in the pudding. The proof is the experience. The proof is what happens when, regardless of proof, without questioning anything, you're guided. You look sympathetically and selflessly enough into the message to find enough evidence, intuitive and justifiable, to begin to act according to the message. It's when you do that you have the empirical evidence that causes the real psychological effect that allows you to autonomously enter the state of mind which interacts with the world, which loves, Sonnet 116, which loves unconditionally with agape, not loves irrationally or without a foundation, which loves everything of every type unconditionally, which does not alter when alteration finds, which looks upon tempests, even the antagonists, things that are totally foreign and strange, even the stone, which is the philosopher's stone, the thing that's so seemingly inanimate, and still finds endless meaning, endless communication, truth, value. Um, this is the function of religion. This is how art passes those messages to you. This is how Shakespeare, the Latter-day Saint, prophet, creator, messenger, apostle, apostolos, um, has passed it to us through Sonnet 116. I hope this helps you to more readily come into interaction with art and religion, where art is used in religion, how religion is embodied in art. And so to come into a more nourishing interaction with the world around you and the vast resources passed to us from across all of history and in process of creation now. Thanks for joining.